So allow yourself to get comfortable laying on your back. Really just a space for you to come down and to rest and lay for a moment. Maybe this is the first time or the first moment in your day where you've given yourself a moment to just rest. So just notice what it feels like to come into that space, and gifting yourself this time with yourself and with me and the other beautiful people on the call. You know, even though you're at home, either alone or with your family, and you've created a little sacred space for yourself just to be with your breath and to be with the practice. We are collectively in a little container here. So we are here for one another as much as we are here for ourselves. And I deeply appreciate this time with you on Wednesday nights. It's become really one of my most treasured and favorite times of the week. Not only because I get to see your beautiful faces, but I really value being able to share this practice and loving getting to practice with you. So give yourself a couple of full breaths and just allow the exhale to soften the body. Just noticing what it feels like to allow yourself to breathe consciously, to rest intently, and to invite softness and spaciousness into the body. And then you get to see if the body is challenged in surrendering and letting go. See if the body is able to calm, or if you're feeling a little scattered and distracted, a little anxious, a little unsettled. Maybe there's some fear, uncertainty, worry. Or maybe today, tonight, you're feeling really joyful, present, grateful. Just observing. I want to share with you a little tonight this practice of acceptance. I think in the current climate of our world, both here in our home in New South Wales, in Australia as a collective, and then of course wider across the globe, there is so much rebuttal and distrust and fear, uncertainty. And it's becoming really clear the level of polarization that exists within our culture and our society. And I feel like the polarization exists for several reasons. But I really believe it begins with acceptance. Acceptance and compassion. this notion or this invitation to be able to fully value and trust every human being, no matter their thoughts, their beliefs, their values, their actions, their desires, to be able to accept every human being and have compassion for every human being, regardless and especially in light of our differences. How different our experience would be in the world if we could truly honor everybody's individual truth. To be able to say, I recognize our differences, but I trust that your beliefs and values, thoughts, feelings, and actions are aligned with your truth as mine are for me. And I have love and kindness and compassion for us regardless. That level of acceptance comes really closely tied into self-awareness. To be able to see clearly into the nature of our own mind, our own thought constructs, our own belief systems, our own values. To know whether or not they are truly our own or if they're borrowed, which they often are, borrowed from our family, our parents, our important people, religion, our culture, our society. To be able to shed the layers of conditioning so that we can understand and truly lock into our own level of truth, our own access to our personal truth. And then be able to hold space and love and kindness for others as they do the same. That's my greatest wish. To be able to love and hold space for our differences, to have compassion, to exude loving kindness, care and support, and deep acceptance, especially when it's different. Take a deep breath in. And let all the breath go. And draw the knees into the chest. And just start to find some gentle movement there. Just be intuitively guided by whatever your body would like to do to help you feel nourished in that space. Maybe it's just to be really still and just squeeze the hips in. Maybe it's to release the inner thighs and stretch the legs out and find some space through the hips. Maybe you just rock gently to nourish the lower back. And then we're going to splay the knees out towards the sides so that the inner thighs are open. And you can either just keep your hands cupped over the kneecaps or the shins, or you can take your hands underneath your knees in a soft sort of happy baby pose. So you want to keep your heels down towards your bottom. It's almost like an extended child's pose position through the hips and the legs, with the arms soft. You really want to keep the whole sacrum connected to the floor. And really, in that space, really try and surrender any tension and holding around the pelvic girdle, and just allow the whole limbs to let go and hold your legs with your hands so that there's no holding happening in the hips. And you're going to breathe deeply into the belly. Even though we are face up in a supine position, we are in a forward fold with the hips hinged, thighs to belly. So a really beautiful way to calm the nervous system. I definitely needed that this afternoon. I'm always really calm when Mackenzie's sick, but there's always this underlying driving force through the nervous system. I'm just needing to stay on high alert and make sure she pulls through that seamlessly, because it can kind of turn pear-shaped pretty quickly. And just before I got her to bed, I just sat down in my room in meditation and just gave myself 5 minutes and just breathe deeply and really soften the exhale and let my body go. And I thought, gosh, I'm actually really, really fired up. I'm really wired. It's not really until I gave myself that space that I realized just how fired up I was. Even for myself, a constant reminder, we need to create those spaces to tune in, to breathe deeply. And I was reminded when I sat down in that meditation, this quote by Eckhart Tolle, who is a global spiritual leader of our time. And he says, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at the moment. I'll read that again. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at the moment. It's a quote that I've often reflected on and tuned into the wisdom of, especially when times are challenging. A reminder that every experience is an opportunity. And that things are never happening to me or to us, they are happening for us. And it's our perception that allows us to see that in a different light. It creates, I really feel like that for me always created a space for curiosity. Oh, this is an opportunity for me to evolve, an opportunity for me to see clearly into the nature of my mind, an opportunity for me to question and inquire. How do I know this is what I need? Because this is the experience I'm having. For me, it creates this, almost feels quite divine, like when things are happening and it's challenging, especially in the context of what's going on in the world right now. We know that this is what we need to evolve our consciousness because this is what's happening. Draw your knees together. Hug your knees into your chest. And then stretch your feet out onto the floor, flat on your back again. And then place your feet flat on the floor. You're going to take the hips onto a bolster or block. So pressing the hips up, pulling something underneath your bottom. Take your feet to the edges of the mat. Just move your feet away from your bottom so that they're still flat on the floor but not really close. Don't have your heels too close to your bottom. Just give yourself a little bit of space. And turn the toes in slightly and allow the knees to knock towards the center. And take your hands and rest them on the lower belly. And just breathe deeply into the belly, feeling the hands gently rise and fall as you breathe in and out. If we can perceive every experience in our life as an opportunity to evolve our level of consciousness, to cultivate compassion, to enhance our capacity to accept and to be kind and loving. It opens up our heart to possibility rather than limitation. So that no matter what situation we find ourselves in, our thoughts and our beliefs and our perceptions around that experience is the difference between being able to find the joy and the lessons and the purity in that experience versus the alternative of it being hard, unfair, and any other perception we might place on an experience, especially if it takes us away from feeling good. Because it's so easy to accept things in life when they're feeling good. It's so easy to accept that we might be deserving of good things and love and appreciate. And things are making us feel happy or joyful or abundant or easy. But as soon as life situations start to change and we have a perception that they're not good or they cause suffering, how quickly we turn away and reject and are repulsed by and do everything we can to avoid feeling those low vibrational, dense energies. But all of it is just perception. At such a simple level or example. Have two people who have had the same life, and one of them absolutely loves chocolate ice cream, and the other person absolutely hates it. And it is the perception of each person that changes the ice cream. But the ice cream is just ice cream. It's just doing its thing, being ice cream, being loved by someone and being hated by another. And that level of perception and polarization exists in everything. So it's never actually the object or the situation that causes pleasant or unpleasantry. It is our perception, our thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings around it that changes or alters what that object is, or how it's perceived, or what the situation is. So if we can find a way to have some space and acceptance, especially in those trying times, to find and seek the lessons, and work towards finding opportunities to feel grateful, even in the hardship. We're creating really profound opportunities for ourselves to grow, to up-level, to shift our consciousness and alter our state of awareness. Take a deep breath in. Let all the breath go. Release the knees interlock. Just let the knees come back up towards the ceiling. Walk the heels back a little bit so they're closer to the bottom. Press your hips up. Push your bolster down underneath your knees. Resting on your back. Just giving yourself 3 really deep, full breaths here. And roll over to your favorite side. And rise up to a seat. We're going to take this position in our legs where the left foot comes in front, so the left shin is in alignment with the long edge of your mat, and the right shin is parallel to the bottom end of your mat. And you're going to take your bolster up against your left hip. And we're going to turn our belly to come into a gentle twist. So before you lay down over the bolster, just take a breath in, lengthen the spine, and then rotate towards the bolster, and then you can come and lay down. If you feel like it's too much, stretch over the edge of that right hip to have the right knee dropped down to the floor. You can either support it on the left foot, or you can take a block or another cushion under that knee, and you'll find as you elevate the knee, when the hip and knee are more in alignment, you just take some of the pressure that happens around the back of the sacroiliac joint, the back of your pelvis. So just finding whatever position feels good for you there. We're finding a gentle twist, keeping your face looking towards the same direction as your knees so that we don't over twist through the neck. You might be able to have your head fully rested on the bolster. Perhaps you have some support from your hands. Wherever you are, you want to allow the whole back body to surrender. Give yourself some really deep breaths into the belly. And just let yourself fall into the shape. I wrote this quote down. There's been lots of stuff that I've been seeing on social media and things just randomly popping up lately that it's all been around acceptance. Just constant little messages from the universe to just surrender into the space and to breathe and to trust. And this one that I wrote down says, some changes look negative on the surface, but you realize space is being created in your life for something new to emerge. And it's that clinging, I think, to having life feel good. It's the clinging and the attachment to this comfort society that we're conditioned into, to always feeling at ease. But of course, life is not easy, and life can never always feel at ease. And we create this illusion for ourselves by making adjustments, constantly adjusting, whether it's consciously or not. Avoidance, reflection, blaming, projection, running, whatever it might be that we do to constantly try and make things in our environment and within ourselves feel okay. I think if you can stay open in the knowing that it's not always going to be easy. And I know that for all of you on the call, I know that you know this deeply. I know you've all experienced deep suffering in your lives. And while those hardships appear to be negative, that in an and of itself is a perception. Because what you might perceive as something negative, the person next to you might perceive as being positive, a bit like the ice cream. If we can just allow space around whatever we're feeling, whatever experience we're having, whatever big emotions are there, give them the right to be there and to really feel and embody and allow things to move through us without clinging, without holding, without avoiding, without grasping. We know that things are temporary, just as what's going on in the world right now. This will not last forever. It is just a blip in time, like all global crises in the past. Whether we perceive it as being negative or not, we can keep having a level of hope that something really beautiful awaits on the other side. Take a deep breath in. Let all the breath go. Sit yourself up. You can just keep your bolster exactly where it is and simply turn over to the other side so that your right hip comes against the bolster. So your right shin will be parallel to the long edge of your mat. Your left shin will be parallel to the back end of your mat. And before you move, having the bolster pressed up against the right hip, rotate your chest and then lay your belly down over the bolster into a subtle little twist. Accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. This will miraculously transform your whole life. It kind of ties in really beautifully with some of the other beautiful quotes I've shared with you in relation to, Eckhart Tolle saying, how do we know this is the experience we need to evolve our consciousness? And he says, well, because this is what's happening. Invites us into this acceptance and surrender. It's like, oh, well, it's here and it's happening. Can we just soften the body and open our heart to it, even in the hardship or the perception of hardship? To accept it as if you had chosen it. a difficult concept to grasp. You know, we would never, it's difficult to consider that we might ever choose great hardship or great loss or great grief or great fear. But if we can shift our mindset to be empowered in whatever experience we're having, rather than be a victim to the experience, it can completely transform. One of the most powerful things I ever heard, and I don't remember where or when or from who, but you know, we get to ask ourselves this question of why. I don't often personally ask why. I know there's no answers there. So that for me is non-acceptance. Asking why is like questioning and lacking acceptance over what's happening. But every now and again it creeps up, and it's that why me, which for me really feels it feels to me like a space of victimization. And I heard someone say once, why not me? And it kind of blew my mind, actually. Like these tragedies and these trials and tribulations and hardships and joys and, you know, great opportunities and great loss and all of the polarization in life is going to happen to someone. It happens to everyone. And so rather than saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? Which for me personally feels like a victim statement or a victim question. Asking why not me, meaning, well, why shouldn't it happen to me when it can happen to anybody, feels really empowering. And so then that question for me, well, why not me, then opens up the possibility for what lessons have I got to learn from this experience? This is happening to me to support my evolution in consciousness. What do I need to learn from this? And then it's so much easier to accept. It's like feeling like I'm sort of taking the bull by the horn and saying, okay, well, this is happening. What do I need to do? Give yourself 3 more breaths here. We're going to roll over, coming all the way up and roll over onto our back. And take a supported heart opener just to give the hips a neutral position to open up through the front of the hips. You can do whatever you like with your legs. For me, tonight my legs just want to be straight. If you're feeling like you would like to go a little deeper or shift the position, you can draw soles of the feet together, or you might want to take your soles of your feet flat on the floor. And then have your arms wherever you feel comfortable, either on your body, arms stretched out to the side. And just breathing deeply and fully. Noticing if there is any contemplation coming up from the quotes that I'm sharing, or my thoughts, my personal feelings on some of the things that I'm saying. Notice if there's any resistance or disagreement, or if you're feeling triggered, or if you're feeling aligned, in agreement with. Just notice what your mind is perceiving, and allow all of that to be there. So even invite in the stillness here, anything in your life that perhaps is easy or difficult to accept. I know there's a huge lack of acceptance around what's happening in relation to our freedom right now, or the perception of our freedom, into the acceptance of people's choices, of people's sovereignty over their own being, their own choices, their own bodies. Eckhart Tolle says, always say yes to the present moment. It's like leaning into this place of deep, deep, deep acceptance. He says, what could be more futile, more insane than to create inner resistance to what already is? What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is happening now and always now? What could be more futile, more insane than to create inner resistance to what already is? What could be more insane than to oppose life itself, which is happening now and always now? Give yourself 5 more breaths here. Make your way up into a seat. Take your hips elevated onto a block or bolster. And just have your legs stretched out. Mine are sort of halfway between being in the front and being open wide. Wider than your hips. We're just having the sit bones slightly elevated, the feet wider than the hips. You can just take your hands on your thighs, or if they reach the floor, or just in your sort of clasping my hands and just resting my forearms on my upper thighs. And then keeping the spine relatively straight, but just dropping the chin towards the chest. And we're just staying here for 10 really deep, full, present breaths. At the end of those 10 breaths, it's going to come into an easy cross-legged position, having the spine completely upright, crown of head reaching up towards the sky, a slight tucking in of the chin. Just take your time if you're still working through those 10 breaths, and just meet me here in a seat whenever you're ready. And just really focus on the breath. Work with a long 4 counts, breathing in for 4, and breathing out for 4. The end of your next exhale, just going to stretch your legs right out in front of you. So this time keeping the legs together. I'd invite you to keep your hips elevated on your bolster. It just helps with the setting of the pelvis. And then you're just going to completely collapse through your belly, drop your chin to chest, round through the spine. If you're feeling like you'd need or would like this to be more in the hamstrings, you can keep length in the spine and hinge from the hips and take more of a deep forward fold than just a soft fold where you're collapsing through the front body. Really depends on your hamstring range of motion and what feels nice for you. Give yourself 5 really full, deep, surrendered breaths here in the forward fold. At the end of those 5 breaths, on an in breath, you'll slowly rise the torso back up. Just take a couple of centering breaths with the the shoulders stacked over the hips. And then come and lay on your back for your final resting pose, either with your legs stretched out without support or with a bolster underneath your knees. If it's cool in your home, please make sure you're nice and warm with a blanket, some socks, or a big warm jumper. I'm going to finish off our practice with the singing bowl. So give yourself 3 or 4 really big, deep breaths that really allow the whole body to soften and land in this final resting shape. Gently start to notice the breath. Notice the body resting on the floor, sensations in the body. We hope that whatever life is sharing with you, you have the capacity to stay present, to be accepting, compassion, kindness, and love at the forefront of that acceptance. To see and value yourself and every other person with the same loving heart. Gently invite yourself over to your side. Make your way up to a seat. And take a deep breath in. And let all the breath go. Hands to heart. Bowing head to heart. Namaste.